You're listening to Temporal Radio, your one-stop shop for news across your timeline. The following broadcast are several recounts of temporal interference from across your timeline. Viewer discretion is advised. When we first arrived in Cove Keep, we were introduced to a slew of characters. Scylla Prescott, leader of the Cove Guard, Dr. Philgood, the Cove's physician, and a boisterous chef by the name of Rawdon Gamsey. We were also introduced to the leaders of Cove Keep, a current king and his young prince son, alongside their loyal advisor. Only moments after the players arrived in Cove Keep, the current king was assassinated, having been poisoned by his own advisor. After collecting enough evidence, the players were able to help apprehend the advisor, and Iago Perdidio was placed in the Cove's dungeons. After investigating and experimenting with the non-violence field of Cove Keep, they were beset upon by spies. The players were able to uncover an infiltration attempt where several creatures had managed to sneak their way in, trying to collect information on how the Cove ran. As time went by, more people were arriving to the Cove, and the need to expand became more obvious. Eventually, an architect was sent for, and designs were made to begin expanding the non-violence field that keeps the Cove safe. Not long after, expansions were made to Cove Keep's non-violence field. After completing these expansions, it was uncovered that the magic that binds and keeps the field active is through the torture of an innocent creature, a unicorn strapped into a foul machine. On our final week of adventures, refugees from the Oasis were misplaced and had nowhere to go. The players were able to help convince them that the best place to survive would be within Cove Keep, and were able to smuggle them inside the Cove into the non-violence field, where they were accepted with open arms.
The Grove, a bastion of nature built around the world tree, an endless sea of green, a forest filled with fauna and flora, both familiar and new. A hub for those like-minded beings who cherish and aim to protect the natural world. The rustic appearance of these tree buildings harbour a communal spirit and a peaceful life. Led by Beharus, the fifth great sage, a dark elf of great respect and command, all heed his knowledge and his desire to protect. Obsidian, new to the role but a competent druid speaker, represents the Amaltharian clan. Adrith Zenazalkin, a high elf blacksmith, new to meet, yet somehow oddly familiar. Tibella, a moon elf in charge of history and the respected keeper of the Tomb of Sages. Aldershadow, guardian of the forest, a large tree ant who has been defending these woods since before the grove was properly established. After the crack in time, with all the adventurers scattered to different locations and locales, first contact is made. Relations are established by aiding in the retrieval of petrified wood and by dealing with an undead spirit rampaging and causing havoc through the forest. The next encounter happens during an investigation orchestrated by Olaf about being stuck in time. The party tasked with this speaks with Beharus and gains access to the tomb of the first sage in hopes of learning something about their predicament. No true clarity, however, is found, except for the fact that time is not linear. Later on, Olaf noticed some temporal time issues pinging from the grove. A sickly Beharus is encountered, seemingly affected by some illness or magical disruption, during which the adventurers interacting with him and helping are sent through multiple alternative timelines and moments in the past, learning that Beharus' own father was murdered by a warforge. With Cove Keep on the rise and making plans of expansion, the Grove becomes worried of an invasion, and so they begin trying to develop new bioweapons to defend their lands. It is met with variety of reception and opinions. A choice was made between Cove Keep and the Grove. Choosing to aid the expansion of the non-violent zone, it however reaches far beyond what anyone was expecting. With this, all relations with the Grove have become strained to a point of snapping, and tensions certainly have risen. An attempt to placate Beharris and aid the Grove to repair relations was barely passed as the group struggled to grasp the lessons Beharris was trying to impart on them. However, on the final of 3 trials, understanding was finally reached, and a small spark, kindle, begins once more to glow. Much will need to be done to repair what has been lost. The question remains, can they achieve it?
The Coalition, a place of industry and technology, made contact with the Travelers when they initiated a treaty seeking skills and abilities to help them complete a task. Over the following weeks, the adventurers performed several tasks for the Coalition, raising money for their endeavours and helping them collect items to forward their plans. So much so that when the time came, the Coalition was poised to make a striking blow against the Oasis. With the assistance of some temporal adventurers, the Coalition was able to strike out and declare war against the Oasis, and end that war devastatingly in one fell swoop. The Coalition now have access to vast magic and resources.
The Oasis, the crown jewel of the desert, overseen by Emperor Sekhmet, the old and sickly ruler of the lands. A wonderful place where they let everyone live, they let everyone serve. Undead and the living working together so that those alive may live lives with all the luxuries you can imagine. Our temporal travellers ingratiate themselves to Emperor Sekhmet by competing in his tournament, taking care of his dear cat, Mr. Whiskers, the great and terrible, darkener of doorways, and the fluffiest of boys. They meet Vindalin, the captain of the Arm, a strike force team of 4 or maybe 5 members, with the sole purpose of following through Sekhmet's biddings. The weeks tick on. Our temporal travellers help out the Oasis by fetching scrolls of necromancy, helping them build greater war machines, helping the Arm find items, and eventually finding out about the wonderful machine that is the Rainmaker. The Rainmaker, a device used to help ensure that there is constant fresh flowing water for the Oasis in the dry and desolate desert. Coalition vying for power and for greater technological advancements, decides that the best way is to create living metal by taking on the Oasis. They use the party and trick them into setting off the Rainmaker, and instead of shutting it off, cause it to go into overload, flooding the entire Oasis. Gone, with only the top of the pyramid left. The party is able to defeat Sekhmet, but just before he is struck down, he becomes encased in bandages and seems to teleport away. On the edge of the now giant lake in the middle of the desert, survivors of the great flooding incident can be seen. The temporal travellers learn of a new crack in time that leads them to finding out that there is now this time's Sekhmet and our time's Sekhmet, both together, fully cooked as full-powered mummy lords, able to take down small armies with a click of their fingers. Meanwhile, other travellers help the refugees of the Oasis to make a new home down in non-violence field of Cove Keep. We now ask ourselves, what will the adventurers do with 2 Sekhmets on the loose and a set of refugees with no way of fending for themselves?
You've been listening to Temporal Radio. We know you're listening. Or have listened. Or will listen.